Hello everyone, welcome back to Genshin Impact and apparently the Windbloom Festival. I'm saying apparently because, well, I mean it's the ongoing event right now, so at least you have a date for when this video came out, right? Assuming you didn't remember. But today I want to be talking about a mistake that I made. You can see the clickbait now. I went for how long without using this character? Question mark, question mark, question mark, giant blacked out image of Kaya on the screen. That's... See, even Kaya's grumpy, he's talking at us. But that's the whole point of this video. This is about a free-to-play team comp with an asterisk. The asterisk is you have been keeping up with the game, you have done all of the events, and you have chosen one character from them that I chose, or recommended choosing, as opposed to not choosing them. Basically, the team comp, in its basest form, in its most basic form, is Kaya, Xingqiu, and Fischl. Because these three are all 4 stars, that are all incredible units and pair together really well. Kaya is actually a free unit. You get him as when you start the game, and I'll go into detail about him in a bit. Xingqiu was free, assuming you did the Liyue Harbor events in this previous month. You could have picked him, and I really hope you did, because he's amazing. He's probably one of the best supports in the game, especially as a burst support, aka a support whose burst just helps deal a ton of damage. And Fischl, her event was a long time ago at this point, but she is also an amazing support. And as you can see, it leaves you open to have a second of either Cryo or Electro, so you can have an Elemental Resonance effect. But we'll get more into that later. Let's start plain and simple with talking about why I think you should be using Kaya and how I'm silly for not having used him before. First of all, he's free. Second of all, he's really freaking good. But the other thing is this sword right here, which is one of Kaya's best weapons, is free. And if you're lucky, you can refine it. Now, hang on. What do you mean it's free? I don't remember that sword being free. I didn't remember it either until recently when I went back through this. And I saw you get a prototype rank or rank 10 adventure rank. Which means you are guaranteed to have one of these swords, assuming you didn't get rid of it through some weird change of fate or silly reason. And this sword is incredible on Kaya, because it, for one, increases his attack on hits, which is like, it's pretty nice. If you get it refined, it's even better. Because if I remember correctly, its refinement makes it go up by a percentage, but because it's max of 4 stacks, it's actually 4%. So in place of 16%, it goes to 20% max on the next rank, which can get really high really fast. I think at max refinement, it's like 8% per stack, so you're getting like 30% attack boost if you manage to get lucky and get swords to drop. That's partially beside the point. But Kaya is just an amazing unit, and this sword's great on him because of something that I didn't even know until recently. His normal attacks, the base hits on them, actually scale better than some 5 stars. Like, his base attacks scale better than one of the, like, most popular sword-wielding 5 stars for a main DPS. They actually scale better than Keqing's. Now, she scales better on charge attacks, so doing spam like this with Kaya is not going to be as effective as it is on Keqing, but if you're just kind of running around hitting random attacks like this, you're actually going to be dealing more damage than if you were using Keqing if you have your talents and weapons at the same level, which is nutty. And Kaya really prefers physical damage because of multiple reasons, one of which being Superconduct as a team ability where you can use an Electro unit and Cryo attacks to decrease the physical res of an opponent. See where I'm going with this? Now that's just one way to play the comp, and let's talk about that first. Let's talk about the Superconduct comp first. So first of all, I'm assuming you're going to use Kaya with a second prototype Rancor, and you're going to use a Fischl, and if you're doing the current event, you can use a Windbloom Ode with her, which will increase her attack and do Elemental Mastery, which increases damage caused by Superconduct by a massive amount, depending on how much Elemental Mastery you have, and this has Elemental Mastery as its secondary stat. Meaning your Superconducts will hit harder and still be decreasing res, giving Kaya more physical damage. Now, for your set, for your artifact set for that, I would it'd be a little more of a problem to get this set, which is why the Superconduct is kind of secondary to the team comp, but you could get a Bloodstained Chivalry set for a 2-piece, and then use the Gladiator set for the other 2-piece. the classic just raw physical damage thing. I believe most people recommend using that on Razor. You can use that for Kaya, and it works surprisingly well. That's kind of a secondary part of the team comp, and not like the main draw of it. Fischl is here because she's an amazing support as well, and when you're not using the freezing part of this team comp, which is what I really recommend you do with it, she's great to use in the meantime of downtime of Shinkyu has really long cooldowns, and you gotta be waiting on him. Now, if you didn't choose Shinkyu, you actually have another option. You can use Barbara. I don't highly recommend Barbara, because I just don't like the way she plays, but Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers is a great way to buff your teammates. You can just run full Maiden Beloved here to just have her heal the crap out of everybody. Technically speaking, Let the Show Begin does apply Hydra to people, so you can freeze people really easily with Kaya. Which brings to the freezing part of the comp, right? So, let's assume that you have another cryo unit. The core of this is 3 free-to-play characters, and now I'm making a slight leap in assumption to say you have another cryo unit. It could be Diona, it could be Chongyun. If it's Chongyun, it's great, because of various reasons that I'll go into in a bit. And it can be Chi-Chi even, if you want another healer, because Shinkyu doesn't provide a lot of healing. I really recommend Diona, personally. And you'll see why right here. 1, she's a healer, and she really helps, and you can just, because she heals so much on her own, you can actually run her as a person who runs a 4-piece noblesse. Hang on, I need to take a drink of water because I'm drying out my throat talking. You can run her with a 4-piece noblesse to up your damage whenever she pops her burst for healing. So you can just sit in her healing buff and just slap. And it gives you the Shattering Ice thing, which is increasing your crit rate against opponents that are frozen or affected by cryo by 15%. So if stuff is affected by cryo, your crit rate goes up. Did you know that there's a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set that when an opponent is affected by cryo, your crit rate goes up? If something's affected by cryo and you're running a 2-unit cryo comp, 2 cryo units in your comp, you, at base, get a 35% crit rate increase. At base. At base! 35% extra crit rate! Just for having them affected by cryo. And if they're frozen, it's another 20%, which means it's 55% crit rate? Like, I'm at 22.9 and 61 right now, right? I'm actually, when they're frozen, at 70% crit rate, and like very little crit damage because I'm not statted very well at the moment, but that's beside the point. But it basically means that your comp can go for, not even your comp, sorry, your Kaya can go for pure crit damage and have a 50% crit rate boost by default for running just a freezing comp. Keep in mind, if you are still including Fischl, only use her when you're not using Shinkyu to freeze people, because you're going to be losing out on about 20% crit rate. I've forgotten the numbers already. This is a very new comp for me. Yeah, sorry, 20% crit rate, because using Superconduct will unfreeze enemies. There's just something to keep in mind. Now, weapons-wise, I'm sure I've talked about Kaya. He's using a prototype Rancor. Talked about Fischl. She's using a Windbloom Ode. Now, I use a Favonius sword or a Sac sword are the 2 main things I recommend for Shinkyu. But those are not free-to-play friendly weapons, but you know what is? The Festering Desire if you got it. And I'll even use my Festering Desire for my heckin' damage display portion that I'm going to go into in a bit here. Just to show off that you can use this weapon. So all 3 of these weapons right here, on the main 3, have been free-to-play. Favonius Warbow is not free-to-play, but not many bows that are free-to-play are good on Diona. Because, like, the compound bow is like, oh, you get physical damage on your healer, that's great. You really just want an energy recharge the bow. Either Favonius or Sacrificial. I think there's a couple of 3-stars that are, like, okay. You could even technically use Rust, just because it's, like, it's a bow. You could use Windbloom on her if you wanted to boost her attack. You could use Stringless just to make her stuff deal more damage, but it's like, it kind of doesn't matter a ton what she's using because she's not really here to deal damage. I just highly recommend if you have an energy recharge weapon, just use it on her. If you're using Diona. The same idea would apply for using Chi-Chi or Chongyun. You want them to have energy recharge so they can get their abilities off faster. Quick notes about Chongyun. He's actually really solid with Kaya because you can make him go into solely dealing cryo damage by using his skill here, which infuses your weapon for like, it's a 10-second field, and then afterwards it stays around for 2 seconds, so it's like 12 seconds total of pure cryo damage. And it means you can actually change your cup from physical damage to cryo damage. Because it's cryo damage, it'll count as your cryo damage, because Kaya's the one out on the field. You know what I mean? So that's wild. But, assuming you're not using Chongyun and using, like, Diona for a healer, like I recommend, because I highly recommend healers just because they make your life easier. This is the idea behind the comp, is using a freeze comp that has a fischl to superconduct whenever you're out of the ability to freeze. It does take away some of your crit rate, but it's not like the worst thing in the world because it ups your physical damage. I had an ongoing challenge where I was showing off, I was testing out this team comp inside the Abyss. Wow, crazy. I'm just going to show how much damage they deal for being an undergeared team. We'll go ahead and use this because I'm just going to assume you're going to go for the best things in here. So it's not like a super fair comparison. I got a 20% attack boost, but I also have a terrible, terrible set of artifacts on Kaya. So let's mess around and test out. So, assuming you can hit Diona, pop that, pop Kaya, and then go to town. This is a level 60 Kaya, fighting level 80 enemies, and just smacking away at them for several thousand with a Shinkyu support. Just going to town with them. Now, as I'm sure you can see, you run into a point you're like, I'm not dealing as much damage, because they're not frozen anymore. Well, start going for superconducts. You're not going to get crits, but you're just going to have more raw physical damage. Like, look at these numbers. Look at all this damage. Like, it's really powerful. And these are even against some enemies that, like, aren't even really good for Kai to be fighting, or Xingqiu to be fighting because they're cryo, or because they're electro. Nope. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this, but Kai actually has, like, a built-in heal in his kit, which is hilarious and wild. I hit the wrong enemy, but that'll still help. But look at this! Like, this is just like a random unleveled Kaya fighting in the Abyss, living just fine and getting through it. This is floor 11 of the Abyss, an undergeared, underleveled Kaya, just having a blast. It's insane. He is really powerful, and I've definitely been undervaluing him, which is just crazy. Especially against these Fatui right here. Because I am getting increased crit rate on them. And they're frozen, and then they're just constantly frozen, and then they're constantly frozen. You're getting the idea. This is an undergeared Kaya who went through a massive portion of that floor without even really taking damage because of the comp you're running around him. So I don't think I talked about this, but Frost Gnaw will heal Kaya for a percentage of his attack. So if you have higher attack, you're healing for more, and I don't even have a good freaking Sands. This is just an Elemental Mastery Sands that I just got my hands on. And in fact, what we're going to do is we're going to swap it up a little bit, so I'm going to lose a bunch of crit rate because of this. Like a bunch of crit rate. Because I'm now using Blizzard Strayer and Bloodstained. I'm going up a ton of crit damage though, and the party bonus is still in effect, so I'm still getting like 30% extra crit rate, so it's not too bad, don't worry. And we're going to show off the physical damage portion here. Half cryo, half physical. A bit of a hybrid build. I like using this for Beidou, who, by the way, you can swap out Xingqiu for Beidou, or Diona for Beidou, and actually have a double heckin'... I'm trying to think of the word. Have a double electro comp to pair with this, to just make a ton of electro particles. But as you can see, like, you don't have as... I'm not having as many crits because I'm not spectral into it, but my physical damage numbers are much higher. I'm hitting for at least 1,000 each time, on average, as opposed to the, like, less than 1,000. I think I was doing like 800 or 900 before. But look at this, it's crazy. It's crazy how good these damage numbers get for just an undergeared, underleveled Kaya. And because of this, you actually almost want to use Fischl more often, because, like I've said before, Superconduct will lower physical res, so you want to trigger your Superconduct as often as possible, because it'll just keep increasing Kaya's damage, and it's just wild how good he is, and how great you can build a team comp around him. Like I said, the basic idea is almost free to play. There's a couple of asterisks here and there. If you didn't do Fischl's event, you won't have access to her, but you can replace her with cryo units, or thunder units of other kinds. And hell, the crazy thing is, you can even swap out Kaya for other units not you can swap out Kaya as your main DPS for other units. So like this is now just a point of showing off like how unkillable you are as well. Like I'm just able to just slowly plunk away at them with an undergeared Kaya and just slowly kill everything. Undergeared Kaya, going to town, just murdering the crap out of everything. As you can tell though, 4-piece Blizzard, a little bit better than the physical, but I kind of hybridized it. So take it with a grain of salt, use whichever side you want to use. Like I said, this is an undergeared Kaya going into there. I either had a really bad Sands on, but massive crit rate, or just didn't have the massive crit rate, you know? So it's just wild. He works so well. And, craziest thing, assuming you end up changing up your comp in the future because, oh, I'm done using Kaya, I got another 5-star I want to use, I want to use Diluc, Venti, maybe you want to use Beidou, maybe you want to use Zhao, Chi-Chi, Albedo, Jin, you got Hu Tao. Kaya works well with all of those. Except maybe Zhao, because Zhao likes to stay out on the field a little too much. But because of the fact that his burst is something that you can pop, have it spinning around you and then leave, he's a great support for melt comps. Let's go look at this character archive real quick. So, let's see what great pyro units there are. Oh, Hu Tao, you can make a great melt comp with her. Klee, great melt comp. Diluc, great melt comp. Bennett kind of, Zhangling, melt comp. Amber, melt comp. You getting the idea yet? Kaya can swap from being a main DPS with a prototype Rancor to giving him a Festering Desire, so that he's a great support that constantly has a burst up for melt. Or just you want to use Ganyu and do a totally cryo comp. Or, I don't know, heckin' there's a million options, and he's a great support for like all of them. I do hesitate on saying he's great in Geo comps. I forgot how much Hu Tao talked, so I regret coming to the screen now. He's not great in geocomps, but it's kind of hard for me to like recommend much for geocomps, because geocomps just kind of stand on their own rights, on their own legs. But that's it. That's what I wanted to talk about in this video. Kind of all over the place, but these are always live and all over the place. Apparently OBS is mad at me, and it's trying to tell me there's an encoding overload. I really hope that doesn't affect the quality of the video. Alright, well, that's the video. Kaya, use him. He's great. He's good in so many different comps in so many different ways. He's someone that I slept on. He's a great main DPS, especially for free-to-play people. And even once you start getting more units from pulls, once you get lucky, quote-unquote, then he can just be a great support for them. Either way, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a sub. Hit the bell? That's a thing people say, right? Hit the bell to get notified when these videos go live. Either way, that's it. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Catch you next time.